So today we have Kent Bang with AgStar Financial Services. And Kent graduated from the University of Nebraska with a degree in animal science and ag business. And then he spent 12 years with Purina Mills and then took a position with ADM where he worked in swine business development and swine marketing. And for the past 20 years, Kent has been involved in financing of commercial swine operations and pork processors. And he currently serves as VP of the swine team for AgStar Financial Services. And he has been a longtime member of NPPC Pork Alliance and currently serves as the NPPC Board of Directors and as a director for the NPPC Political Action Committee. So I'd like to thank Kent and bring him up.
Appreciated it. I work for the same company for AgStar that Mark Greenwood works for, and he had to start the day by talking about his age and the fact that he was old, which really hurts because I know that I'm older than him, and that's unfortunate for me, I guess. It's good to be with you. I want to thank Iowa State for the opportunity to come here, and it's been a great agenda so far, I think, and hopefully I can share some information with you, but that also helps. But before we get started, I wanted to, as I was looking at this room when we walked in this morning, and I've been to the Sheeman building before, but I've not been in here, and it is almost identical to a class that I took at the University of Nebraska some 35 years ago. And so, to make a long story short, Nebraska's campus, the Ag campus is East Campus, and then there's the main campus, and the Ag students spend most of their time, especially the upper class, on East Campus, so you don't get downtown very often. And my senior year, I decided that I needed to take a night class downtown, maybe meet some girls down there, and I thought, well, this would be a great opportunity. And the class was ornithology. Show of hands, everybody know what that is? Yeah. Birds, study of birds, you're very close. So it's a study of birds. I thought, how tough can that be for an animal science grad, right? Can't be too hard. So I took the class, the first couple of classes. It's a room about this size, laid out almost identical to this, and maybe just about this many people in the whole class. That was it, on a Thursday night, once a week. It didn't fulfill my obligation of finding any girls, so I didn't go to class very often. In fact, I think after those first 2 times, that was it. I went to take the final, though, and so here's up on the stage, here's the final. There's like 30 or 40 birds up here. Just the feet is all you could see. Only the feet. And you had to identify those 30 or 40 birds. I was pretty lost. I knew that wasn't going to come out very well for me, so I waited for a while and basically did nothing. Then I came up and slammed my test, or didn't slam it, I set my test on the pile about halfway through, and I started out the door quickly. And the professor who'd been sitting there just kind of not really paying attention to much, he says, of course he didn't know me because I'd never been to class. He said, young man, stop. I stopped up there at the top of the steps and he said, what's your name? After he's looking at us, he's got my test in his hands. What's your name? So I took off my shoes and socks and I said, you tell me. And then I left. So thought I'd figure this out at a little later time, how I'd get through that. Again, appreciate being here with you today. What I want to try and do today is to share what I think is probably the biggest issue that we deal from a production standpoint day in, day out, on a macro side that affects and impacts profitability. And so I titled it, just for lack of a better term, just margins that we should have. It's the margins on those pigs that we should be selling. I wanted to stop just real quick just to tell you guys who we were. I didn't realize exactly what Mark was going to do this morning, so I'll just breeze through them real quick. We're all part of the farm credit system. AgStar is. And we're part of what we call, our funding bank is the Agribank District. And that covers this part of the country. So that's where we source our money. That's where we fund our money. You can see where AgStar's territory is up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And what he was talking about this morning as far as our merger that's coming is with, see if I can make this work, is with Badgerland that's in southern Wisconsin, and then First Farm Credit that's Northern Illinois. So really expanding the footprint of what we're going to be doing from a geography standpoint. But it really doesn't change from how our swine team operates. This is our team. I report to Mark and lead this swine team. And so that's kind of, doesn't really change what we will do. We're going to add one person to that team out in Illinois that's been a swine specialist for some 20 years out there, but that will be our team going forward. And then we've got an analyst. And a team of analysts that have been around through a lot and have a lot of experience. Even though they look young, but again, most people in groups look young to me anymore. Maybe that's just a factor of my age, but they've been, most all of these, with the exception of the young man on the bottom right, have been with us and through a couple of cycles, which is important. And I bring that up because as we look at, we need the ability to crunch numbers and look at financials, but also to really understand. We get up every day and talk about ways that we can help our customers or our clients get better. And these guys do a lot of the back room so that we can understand different parameters about what's going on the farm, what's impacting profitability. We don't have a perfect understanding, of course, but we've got a pretty good understanding. And as I stop and look at all of that, I look at again, the biggest impact that I see as we go through it, and I'll reiterate it a couple times, is, the margins that we should be capturing on the pigs that don't make it to market. And so Elanco 10 or 15 years ago coined it as full value pigs. I've always looked at it from the standpoint of what percentage of the pigs can we get to our primary market. And I generally look at it from wean to finish, and that I think has the biggest impact. I'll talk about it in a little bit, and maybe some opportunities to look at it even from total born to what's marketed to the primary market. As the key driver, when we look at differences from farm to farm in profitability and ability to drive cost out of this business. So what I wanted to talk about today is kind of an agenda is production metrics around that. How we drive the drivers of full value pig improvement. From a lender's perspective, what the competitive position is relative to production measures like this and how the competition stacks up. I think as we've made improvements in production performance over the years, what world-class production looks like, and then just some real basic, big picture items of what are the challenges to making those improvements. And there are many challenges to making significant improvement in this metric. So, history has told us that anything, as we begin to track and understand and compare, we can make improvements. And it's very evident as we look at reproductive metrics, whether it be farrowing rate, total born live, pre-weaning mortality, pigs per sow per year. When we measure it, we can make some impact and change it. We start looking at ways, we start looking at the metric time over time or compared to other farms, either internally or externally, and find ways to improve it. And so I would say without a doubt, if we can track it, we can understand it, we can make improvement in it. And I think the things that we could do much better, is the wean to finish metrics. That coupled with cost of production metrics, I think we could do a lot better job of understanding those and helping you all understand what those metrics are. I think wean to finish, I think we've got really, really good. If you've got multiple farms, most of you do, there's really good metrics internally. You've got good metrics if you've got good closeout data from one farm to the next. And the ability to look at, what are the drivers, what are the differences between those two from a metric standpoint, between closeouts and being able to measure the performance. And the biggest one, again, as I said, is I think, just what percentage of those pigs we can get to market. And then cost of production the same way, and I'll dig a little bit deeper into some of the cost metrics as we go forward and what we're looking at. This is PigChamp Database stuff, and I think it's data that they've pulled out. Mike Porth, I stole this from you and some stuff that you sent me, but it's PigChamp's database. And you look at any of these metrics over time, and we've done a pretty good job of comparing them. And so this is some, and maybe you know right off the top of your head, Mike, but I think it's 895 or 900 farms, basically, in this database set. But you can look at farrowing rate and the improvement over time. About 85% farrowing rate here lately, and good improvement over the last decade or so. To the right, pigs per litter in total born live, and weaned. And again, a very good trend line up to about 13 or 14 born, 13, almost 13 born live, and then 11 pigs weaned. So significant improvement time over time. And I think the biggest driver in that, as we look at this, is just the ability to track the farm and continually drive performance by understanding the numbers on an annual, quarterly, and or monthly basis as we drive performance. Sow death loss, I think, is kind of an interesting one, and we've had a lot of discussion around that here recently with some numbers that seem to be escalating. You can see looked like we were making some pretty good progress from 05 to maybe 2009 or 2010, a spike, and then the last few years, a pretty good size increase in it. So we've gone the last 4 or 5 years from 8% back up to 9% on an average, and I hear a lot of discussion about sow prolapses maybe driving that, and there may be a lot of reasons for that. And I think as we dig into a little better production metrics and understanding what's being euthanized or the reasons why those sows we're losing them, I think we might find some of that is euthanasia just because of, from a welfare standpoint. Pre-weaning mortality, again, as we look at drivers, and I say anything we can measure, we can improve. Pre-weaning mortality, I think we pushed that down on an average to about 12, which to me doesn't sound that great, but about 12%, and then we bounced around here the last few years and then back down to about 13%. But we're doing that on more pigs, obviously. So if you look at probably the number that everybody looks at or wants to see at the end of the day, PigChamp's numbers are about 25 PSY lately, but here's where you can kind of see the trend line overall and continuous improvement in that number over time. I'm going to share with you in a little bit what I mentioned world-class production and kind of where I think this industry's at. We keep our metrics on our major client base, and they would beat this by 3 pigs. So I'm not sure where all these farms are at, but certainly some diversity in this industry from a production standpoint. So, wean to finish, again, I have tremendous amount of confidence in the sow numbers, the sow productivity numbers. Not so much when it comes to wean to finish. This is a little harder to get. But I think the number, this is kind of a perception more than a documented study, but 85 to 88% of the pigs that we place in a nursery or wean to finish barn never make it to market or never make it to the primary market. And I think that's a really tough reality for this industry in terms of what it costs. And I hope to show you some of those numbers. But that's a huge opportunity for every farm, I think, to look at this and make some improvement in that. And I would have guessed, it'd be 88 to 90% on average. But as I started digging into a lot of numbers and having some conversations, I think it's probably closer to 85 than it is to 90%. That's a lot of lost opportunity for the industry. I think we're improving overall, but it's slow to come, and I think that's why I wanted to do this, talk a little bit about it, and maybe help drive some of what it takes to make that improvement day in, day out, and focus on this area. And as I said earlier, I think this would be the one single largest opportunity to improve margins or drive costs out of your business that exists. So let's talk a little bit, just some real big picture items of what drives that number or what's driving it. Pig health obviously probably is number one. It starts with the sow farm and the pig health when they leave, and then I still think we've got a lot of challenges with attempts or needs maybe to commingle pigs going into a nursery or a finish site. And so between those two items, if it seems pretty straightforward. If we can start with a healthy pig, we're going to have an opportunity to improve that number. So that's probably the primary area to start. Management, early care, I think from day one care is critical to getting the pig on the right start. Temperature, airspeed, those things that we manage there. Identifying poor performers, in other words, watching the pigs, every pig every day, and trying to take some action where needed to make that improvement on an individual basis. Nutrition, and then genetics, although I've got no comment. I don't know. I'm certain there's differences in genetics, but couldn't begin to tell you what they might be. But I think between those areas is where we need to look to see if we can make some improvement. So day one care. I think in the right situation, 24-hour care is a wonderful thing. I've seen farms. I'll show you some data off some world-class production, and that is 24-hour care. I don't know if you can justify it. In fact, I know in some farms you can't justify it, but Brenneman's, you guys did some really neat data collection, at least on your farm, on when those sows are farrowing and started doing some extended care. And I mean, that's kind of what it's at, right? I mean, if the bulk of your sows are farrowing from 5 in the evening till 10 in the evening, maybe that's where you put the care, and you're going to miss a few overnight, but you're catching the bulk of them with good individual care for the pigs to get them started. But drying them off, making sure they get colostrum and get a start, and if that doesn't happen, we're setting that pig up for some issues going forward. So a lot of things we can do there to help not only pre-weaning mortality, but I think also wean to finish mortality as well. Whoop. And again, just making sure pigs get colostrum, get a start, comfortable, and they get started on the right foot is key to getting them, keeping that healthy pig that you can wean and then get through the system. And then when they are in the nursery or they're in the wean to finish barn, really it's about individual, the opportunity to look at pigs on an individual basis and try to make some interaction. Are they comfortable? Airspeed? Are they getting nutrition? Are they getting to the feeder? Is there some individual care that's needed? And the only way really to do that is to spend a little time looking at individual pigs and understanding that metric, or understanding where they're at in that regard. And it takes a little bit of time and maybe something that we've lost in a lot of our contract barns, maybe when they get busy, when they're out planting corn or harvesting corn, or they are busy doing other things, that we miss this opportunity to provide some individual pig care and improve this. So the end result, obviously, we want to get as many of those to this stage as we can and get them to market on a timely basis, and as many of them as we can. So, the issue is, again, all of those things we talked about, and starting with a good pig, the health of the pig going in, the eliminating commingling where we can do it, or at least making sure that we've got similar health status, and then pig management through finishing. But I think, again, the opportunity to make improvement in this is pretty large. So nursery finish, this kind of data, again, is kind of hard to come by to do much comparison. There's multiple of database systems that can supply reproductive information. This is one most of those systems have had challenges in getting data that you can use back to you. And so So I think you've kind of got to look for ways to do it yourself and make comparisons internally. Maybe a small peer group where you can do some comparisons, but these databases have just not been very functional, I don't think, in getting information for you to use to make some improvements here. And like I said earlier, I think there's much more to gain in this wean to finish phase than there is in the reproductive end. So by that I mean you could go to work and work really hard to increase pigs weaned per sow by another pig. You might reduce the cost of that pig coming out of there by $1 or $2. The big money is obviously in finishing, where we're spending the bulk of the cost. So driving this, I think, is critical. I'm going to show you where at least I believe that going from a 85%, which might be average in the U.S., to 95, which is is attainable. I think that's worth $12.50 or $6 a hundredweight in cost, and that's huge. $6 a hundredweight is a fairly decent return. So what are the metrics that you would track? Mortality would be number one. And I think as we go through some of it, the timing and reason. Why are we losing them? When are we losing them? That's going to help you work with your vet or understand interventions that you can do to make improvements in that. Same thing with culls and euthanasia. And then looking at a couple different ways. And like I said earlier, the way that I look at this is how many pigs or what percentage of the pigs I can get to the primary market. It probably can be taken a lot further than that. I mean, in that, how many are hitting the red box, if that's the way you look at it, how many are hitting a certain weight, within a certain weight range. I mean, that gets pretty sophisticated when, if we're at the standpoint where we're losing, where we're not getting more than 85% marketed to the primary market, and probably just looking at that metric is enough. Some information that I put together, just pulling costs and making some assumptions and looking at what is the opportunity here. So if to the far left, if we marketed 100% of the pigs that were put into a nursery or a wean to finish barn, which I know is not possible, but at $168 a pig, there's the revenue. Pig cost, if they were $36, landed in that facility at $36,000. Contract cost, if you're paying, if that's what the finished barn cost you for that turn, for instance, and then other production costs, feed, vet med, other interest, other costs, left a margin of about $31,000, or a cost of production of $48.60 per hundredweight. And just go down, skip over a couple just to get an idea. So at 90%, that's not a bad number, but you can see how it drives cost of production, total cost. And I think the point when you start looking at that is the yardage cost fixed as you look at how many pigs are going to it? And generally it is, but not always. But so when I look at a pig that's lost, the minimum cost of that pig loss is not the $36. If he dies the day I put him into the nursery, the cost of that death loss is not $36. To me, the cost of that is $55, because I just lost the yardage opportunity and the pig itself. So so that's the assumption that's made in here that drives that cost. But that's reality for most of us. I've got so many spaces, I'm going to fill it with that week's pigs, or that 2 weeks pigs, or whatever it is, and that cost is fixed relative to what my production is going out of it. So again, looking at pretty easily, making a move of 5% is $2.50 or $3 a hundredweight on a live basis difference in cost of production, and I think that's the reality. So it's really something that's very much worth going after when you're talking about $12 to $13 a head, especially under this revenue stream. As revenue goes up, that difference is even larger. So cost of production, and just looking at, again, some of the metrics, and these are Iowa State numbers, so these are, I think we talked about them, I think maybe Mark did earlier today, talked about the Iowa State numbers, and I've kind of tracked it over the last, I don't know, 20 or 25 years, I guess, long time anyway. But these are 2016 and what they came up with for, on that model, cost of production and then revenue. And it shows a $4.72 loss last year. And I think if you look at our numbers that Mark shared this morning, I think it was $3.65, I don't remember, but that's really close profit for the year. And what I would say is you look at these, I think about less than half of that cost difference, or that the profit difference, less than half of that difference is in cost of production, and a little more than half of that is in increased revenue that they're getting versus this model, and that's fairly consistent year in, year out. But this is what it looks like over time and on a monthly basis, but more importantly, this is the same data, but looking at it from a standpoint of cost. And, you know, I think the opportunity to drive costs down to these numbers, and that's really good from a cost standpoint at 48 on a live basis, I think is in this marketing of to your primary market, getting more full value from pigs that get weaned. As I said earlier, you know, the database that we keep at AgStar of our clients, majority of those are in the 26 to 30 PSY, which I thought was pretty interesting when you compare it back to the PIC data. So we either have picked better clients or they're lying to us, one of the two, right? But I think they're better overall and doing a better job of raising pigs. And again, pig survival, a little harder to get. I think the difference makers, when I look at it, and I said number one is what we're getting to the primary market. Feed conversion obviously is still a big driver. Pig cost at weaning and PSY, and then grower space is driving that grower space cost is driving a lot of that difference, and just how effectively we're using the space that we either own or we're contracting is another one of the, what I would say are the top 5 or 6 drivers. And then when we compare it back to the Iowa State model, risk management is a big piece of that as well. And you can see it really in certain years either, well, it's a driver one way or another, right? Generally positive. 2014 would have been an exception where their risk management was the other way. So I mentioned I'd talk about world-class production when it comes to this. So this is what I would consider to be world-class, and so more than one farm doing it today. So fair run rate at 95% on a routine basis over the last couple of years. Pigs per litter, so born almost getting to 16. I think the number was 15.8. And then it's hard to see there, but so the wean number was just right at 14. And so it is getting done. Sow death loss, certainly we can make some improvements there. We have farms, a few, that will be at 5% on an annual basis. And then pre-weaning mortality, something down there at 7 or less. And I would say that's with 24-hour care. That comes at a bit of a cost, but that's doable. And you start talking about animal welfare issues. Start talking about cost of production. In many of these cases, the denominator is strong enough to support additional cost. And then so that's putting PSY at something over 35. And again, a handful of farms doing it, and I'd say they'd be no different than a lot of people from the standpoint that they're looking at what's the metric, what's it take to get that next pig, and what do I have to do to get there. And so the opportunities are there. Again, if we measure it, we can improve it. Yes, we're going to have some hiccups up and down the road, but we can make changes in it. So this looks at a lot of the same numbers in what I would consider world-class, from PSY of 30 to 35, farrow rate of 90 to 95, born live of 14 and a half, or total born 14 and a half to 15 and a half, and pre-weaning mortality of 7 to 10%, total pigs weaned, or total wean per litter of 13 to 14, and the sow death loss, you can ignore my number. I'm not sure what is world-class there anymore. I think, you know, 6 to 10% seems tough to attain anymore if you look at a lot of averages across a lot of different farms. But most importantly, I think, you know, percent marketed as grade A, 92 to 95, and I would say, and this is probably a point it's a point I need to make, because I would say that the farms that we work with that have the highest PSY weaned are also the ones that have the highest percent weaned that get marketed. Contrary to what one might think, that you're weaning pigs that maybe shouldn't have been, or you know, they're weaning pigs that are making it to market. So and again, as you would guess, it's health driving a lot of that. So death loss combined of 4 to 6%, and 1 to 2% of that is of culls marketed. Average daily gain of 175. Feed that's wean to finish. Feed conversion of 2.5 to 1, but that's obviously very dependent on diet density. And then grower space utilization. That's a hard one for us to get a handle on, because we look at it mostly from the standpoint of cost. But we know when you're getting down there to $16 to $18 per space per contract on a per pig basis, that you've got to be over 2 turns on those barns to make that work that way. So looking at wean to finish more specifically, and looking at some of those farms that are attaining levels like that, where are they losing pigs, and this is how I could break it down on those farms. But weaning to 3 weeks post-weaning at 1%, and very good death loss from 3 to 12 weeks post-weaning at only 0.5%, and then 12 weeks post-weaning to market at 1.5%. And then culls, both combined, euthanasia, losses, the whole thing. Euthanasia and marketed, I combined, and that's 2%. So really driving that mortality down, but also, you know, driving the quality of what we're producing up. I'm going to finish with, you know, what I see as some of the real challenges that we have, and some of you may have in making some significant improvement. I think every farm can make improvement, but some of the significant factors or challenges we have. The external ones are, you know, concentration in the area where you're at. You know, you can do a lot of things right, and then if your neighbor's breaking with something, you've got issues that maybe are a little bit external and beyond your control to some degree. And then I think I think we've got some fantastic contract growers out there, and we probably have some that maybe aren't somehow figuring out ways to train and motivate those guys to get them to do a little better job, take care of the pigs better, get the daily observations, and that's hard to do, but clearly something we need to drive in this industry. Internal, again, measuring and focusing on continuous improvement, employees and people engaged, managing pig health probably always comes to the top. And then it's just daily execution at the farm level. And I always look at it from the standpoint of whoever's servicing those contract growers or supervising those farms, you know, when he backs out of the lane or drives out of the lane in the morning, where is my issue? Where do I need to go? Where can I make the impact? And it's probably not with a contract grower that's got continuous 3 or 4% death loss or 5% death loss. You know, it's the ones where you know you can make an impact and help drive production that way. So that is kind of what I had. I think we've got a minute or two for questions, but I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. Okay? Any Any questions, or are they going to let me off the hook easy? Yep. Yeah, the limited amount of stuff that, and we're getting to look at more and more of that data with more and more pen gestation farms, and I'm not seeing any difference. Maybe there's some more experience in this room, but from what I'm seeing with clients that have the same genetics, same nutrition, same management, basically, although different employees on different farms, and some of each, I would say they're almost or probably every bit as good in the pen gestation. If there's anything, I've seen a little bit, maybe a little bit of lameness or complaint about some lameness, but you haven't seen it in the numbers yet. So is that your experience, or what are you seeing? Yeah, and most of what I've been hearing lately is this whole prolapse issue has become a real deal. Hopefully not for anybody in this room, but it's most of the increase in sow mortality has been around prolapse, or so much of it that it's all of a sudden became a big deal. And there's a pretty good team together of scientists trying to figure out, what the drivers are. But yeah, Dwight. I think we will, but I think the economics will still drive that more. And I think what it will drive more is more double stocking in finishing, or as a wean to finish, more double stocking, and probably for a longer period of time to extend that. It seems to me in this industry, we've built sow farms in the last couple of years a lot faster than we've built finishing space. So I'm wondering where the flex is at. I don't know if you guys, maybe I'm missing something, but it just feels that way to me. And so if it's not double stocked or lighter pigs, I don't think they're going to grow faster because ractopamine, we're not using near as much. I know farms that are just pulling antibiotics out, just forcing less use of antibiotics, even where it may or may not be prudent. So it's got to depress pig performance to some degree, so I don't know what gives, but if the economics are there, I think, to take them heavier again, we'll get there, or we'll do it. We'll figure out a way to do it. And I think by double stocking probably in the nursery or early on. Thank you, everybody.